Hi, my name's Diane Norden, and I'm a sheep and goat health specialist with the Sheep and Goat Health Commodity. And I'm here to present on the FY21 Sheep, Goat, Cervid, and Equine Cooperative Agreement. Our sheep and goat surveillance goals are to investigate and sample scrapie suspect sheep and goats, collect all targeted animals regardless of traceability at regulatory scrapie slaughter surveillance sites, maintain current and add new RSS collection sites, and increase scrapie surveillance of sheep and goats from higher risk and underrepresented flocks or populations and higher risk animals such as mature found dead animals on farm or at livestock markets. Note that we are no longer targeting black-faced sheep, Montadales, or South Down breeds of sheep. Targeted animals include all sheep and goats aged 2, 3, 4, and 5 years of age based on dentition, regardless of traceability, and any mature animal that dies prior to slaughter or is condemned on antemortem inspection, is non-ambulatory, exhibits central nervous system signs, or exhibits intense rubbing, abrasions, or rough thickened and/or hyperpigmented skin. Another goal of the sheep and goat surveillance includes conducting surveillance to meet or exceed the state of origin based surveillance annual sampling minimums for sheep and goats. A link to your state of origin minimums can be found in the Cooperative Agreement Guide. You can monitor your state's progress towards these minimums by accessing the Scrapie Monthly Report that's posted on the public-facing Scrapie Eradication webpage. Note that 9 CFR states that states must meet their surveillance minimums by April 26, 2021 in order to maintain their scrapie consistent state status. The Sheep and Goat Health Team is developing a guidance document that describes actions that will be taken when a state fails to meet their annual scraping surveillance sampling minimums and outlines how a state that doesn't meet their sampling minimum in FY21 can avoid loss of status. This guidance document will be out in January 2021. So for sheep and goat surveillance, samples from current and new RSSS collection sites are encouraged. Agreement funding can be used to pay states' personnel salaries to collect and submit samples, or to pay slaughter plants for a variety of activities, including option 1, submitting whole heads to our centralized collection facility in Remington, Indiana, or another centralized collection site within your state. Option 2 is to store whole heads for subsequent collection and submission by state employees off-site. Option 3 includes removing whole heads without storage for state employees to collect and submit. And option 4 is for the plant to collect and submit tissues from soup to nuts. Templates exist for the sampling agreements, and we have statements of work for each of the options noted above, and the links are in your recipient guide. Guidelines for allowable costs can be found in the comments in the SOW templates. Note that the templates are primarily written for USDA to go into agreements with the plants rather than the states, so they will need to be modified to meet your needs as a cooperator. It's preferred that USDA enter into the agreements with the slaughter plants, but note that especially with options 2 and 3, there can be state involvement in sample collection. Personnel costs can also be included for the time spent visiting slaughter plants to get them signed up as an RSSS site. Other options for sheep and goat surveillance include on-farm necropsy testing. This could include collecting and submitting necropsy samples from scrapie suspects or age-eligible found dead animals on farm or at livestock markets, or giving boxes to producers or to market personnel to ship heads from found dead animals to the centralized collection site in Remington, Indiana. Note that the Sheep and Goat Health Team is developing an SOW for markets for their efforts in assisting with live animal sampling and necropsy submissions of dead and euthanized sheep or goats. On-farm live animal testing is another option for sheep and goat scrapie surveillance. Rectal biopsies can be collected from producer animals or at animals at markets, and this option is for states that are struggling to meet their surveillance minimums. For sheep, current sampling for genotyping and then subsequent submission of rectal biopsies once the genotype results are known. And for goats, it's rectal biopsy only, no genotyping is needed. Note that for all scrapie surveillance activities, USDA will pay for the boxes, shipment of boxes, and laboratory costs, IHC testing and genotype testing through our existing contracts. Most collection supplies can be obtained through NVSL and shouldn't be included in cooperative agreement costs. Acceptable expenses include personnel costs and supplies such as needles, disposable gloves, lidocaine gel, etc. Any type of materials that are not supplied by NVSL. Note that other surveillance strategies can be considered too. So if you have a unique surveillance strategy that you'd like to include in your cooperative agreement, please work with your program manager and reach out to either Dr. Gazer or myself, and we can discuss those strategies. Work with your state DSEs for designated scrapie epidemiologists for details on sample collection, obtaining collection supplies, sample shipment, which laboratories to use. SOPs and manuals are available for surveillance use. So reporting for these activities is either non-RSSS activities and RSSS, slaughter plant activities. So for non-RSSS activities, we'd like you to report the number of scrapie suspect sheep or goats you investigated, the number of sheep and goats sampled, number of flocks samples, and the number of flocks genotyped to identify animals for subsequent live animal testing, and the number of positive flocks identified. These templates are available in your recipient's guide. Remember that only those activities that are funded through the cooperative agreement should be included. Reports are due quarterly as part of the cooperative agreement quarterly report. For slaughter surveillance reporting, we'd like you to report the number of animals sampled, the number of samples that were entered into VSLS, that's our Veterinary Services Laboratory Submission online submission page, the number of positive flocks identified, and RSS and potential RSS sites that were visited for reasons other than sample collection. So if you're recruiting, for example, if you're recruiting a new slaughter site and you needed to talk to the manager of the slaughter plant and explain what you were doing and gain cooperation there, those activities can be included in your cooperative agreement. Okay, so for sheep and goat, cervid, and equine education and outreach goals, we want you to use education and outreach to increase the ID and record keeping compliance for sheep and goats, reporting and submission of animals with clinical signs, for example, CWD, scrapie, foreign animal diseases, or high impact emerging diseases within the sheep, goat, cervid, and equine species. Submission of found dead mature sheep for scrapie testing, and use education and outreach to increase producer awareness of how to use genotyping and other strategies to prevent scrapie introduction. Specific activities could include development and distribution of pamphlets, newsletters, signage for markets, and attendance at producer meetings. So for outreach and reporting, if a presentation was made, please include a description of the outreach or education activity or meeting, including a description of the audience, the number of samples, number of people reached, a description of education materials, the method of outreach, copy of materials created, and the name of the meeting, location, and organization holding the meeting. If no presentation was made, please provide the name and organization providing the training or meeting, purpose of attending, who attended, the location of the training or meeting, the outcome, and an agenda if one is available. For preparedness and response objectives, activities could include conducting disease response activities, increasing the number of flocks in the database in our SES Scrapie instance, and the percentage of those flocks that use official identification, and monitoring and enforcing ID record-keeping compliance at concentration points. Remember that cooperative agreement funding should not be used to purchase official tags or taggers. And just as a side note, there have been no new Scrapie investigations in FY20 and none so far in FY21. So conducting disease response activities will likely include diseases other than Scrapie. So for reporting for preparedness and response, a template is available in your recipient's guide for reporting disease response activities. We want you to provide the disease of interest and the activity performed. Templates for ID compliance reports are also available from your program manager. So we have recently revamped these ID compliance reports, and we don't have them available in your guide, so you'll need to get those from the program manager. There's going to be two different reports, one for if you as the state are performing all the investigation and compliance activities at a given concentration point, at a given market, and you can aggregate all your inspections into one final report. If you as the cooperator do not do all the inspections at a given concentration point, we just want you to report individual inspections that are done. So there'll be two reporting templates that are available for you. If you have any questions on anything related to SGCE, send you to your program manager, or you can reach Dr. Gazer or myself. Dr. Gazer serves the eastern states, and I do most of the western states. We'll get you answers and talk through any questions you might have. Thank you.